It's almost a miracle that the film of the Ron Lyle Earnie Shavers fight exists. It wasn't on TV, no announcers, no polished production, just a man with a camera perched somewhere in the stands. The only reason we have this fight on film is because someone from Lyle's camp, probably his manager Bill Daniels, a cable TV executive, knew this one needed to be caught on camera. If they hadn't, we'd be left piecing it together from secondhand stories from the old boxing magazines. It was September 13th, 1975, back when the heavyweight division still meant something. 5,000 locals crammed into the Denver Coliseum, screaming for Lyle, the hometown ex-con. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a man who'd done time and come back with a chip on his shoulder the size of the Rockies. Now, Shavers, on the other hand, came in with fists like sledgehammers and a reputation built on shattered jaws. You didn't fight Earnie Shavers, you braced for him, like a man standing in front of a runaway train. No frills, no fancy footwork, just violence served straight up. Lyle came in with 30 wins and 3 losses, and even those losses had their stories. One of them, just 4 months back, was against Muhammad Ali. Half the people watching it thought it was a premature stoppage, the other half figured Lyle was running out of gas anyway. Didn't matter, the record said TKO, and that was that. Earnie Shavers came in with 49 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, and 48 knockouts. 20 of those knockouts came in the first round. He wasn't boxing, he was committing legalized assault with a pair of gloves. If Shavers landed clean, you left the ring with fewer memories than you came in with. But Shavers had his cracks. Jerry Quarry wiped him out in a single round. And then there was Bob Stallings, a journeyman with a record that read like a love letter to failure. Stallings dropped Shavers and took a decision. That loss clung to Shavers like a bad ex-wife, dragging him down to number 7 in the rankings, with Lyle sitting just 2 spots below at number 9. The guy gives it good, but who knows how much he can take, Lyle said. I'm going to whip him. If he wants to fall in 1 round or 4 rounds or 7, I don't care. Whenever he's ready, he can go. Shavers figured he'd crack Lyle's skull before the 5th, said he saw the blueprint in the Ali fight, how vulnerable Lyle was to a right hand. It's going to be a tough fight with both of us strong punchers, Shavers said. It's also tough to fight someone in their town, but that's part of what has to be done. The winner would get George Foreman, but nobody was thinking about Foreman just yet. Now, this fight was meant for the world to see. Instead, it stayed only local, a secret shared by only the live audience. Lyle and Shavers were carved from the same block of power and violence, 2 men playing Russian roulette with fists instead of pistols. The first round saw Lyle moving on his toes, a man trying to outrun a storm, circling just enough to stay out of the meat grinder. Shavers moved in like violence looking for a home. No grace, no flair, just forward motion. Left, right, like cannon fire. One of those rights found Lyle clean in the corner. He took it, but barely. You don't take many of those from Shavers and leave the ring on your feet. Each right hand was a threat, a handshake with the devil. So Lyle did the only thing he could. He got in close, too close for Shavers to extend the arm and find the range. It was like hugging a lit stick of dynamite, praying you could keep the fuse from burning down. But Lyle wasn't just there to survive. Somewhere between the clinches and the corner work, he turned Shavers around, pressed him into the ropes, and started feeding him back, short, ugly power shots. The hometown crowd stood up. They'd come for blood, and now they were getting it. Shavers' power showed up early, but Lyle gave it right back, punch for punch, 2 men testing the walls of each other's skulls, seeing which one would crack first. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't sweet science. This was 2 guys who knew what they were, knew what the other guy was, and whoever stayed standing got to tell the story. In round 2, Lyle wasn't dancing anymore. He stood flat-footed, ready to dig in. Shavers stopped chasing, too, maybe realizing Lyle wasn't going to fold, maybe just needing to rethink his approach. Lyle let his left hand hang low, daring Shavers to unload that murderous right. But Shavers didn't bite. He twitched his shoulders, feinted a step, his eyes doing math only he understood. The round was circling the drain when Shavers finally let a left hook fly. It landed flush, and Lyle's body betrayed him on the spot. His knees buckled and his legs quit. Clutching the ropes, he forced himself upright, wobbling like a busted chair. Shavers, smelling blood, moved in to finish the job. But the bell sounded and saved Lyle, dragging him back from hell for at least another 60 seconds. Round 3. Lyle decided to show Shavers he wasn't a dead man walking. He marched across the ring and shoved Shavers back into the ropes, not with punches, but with sheer meat and muscle. Prison yard stuff, all shoulders and sweat. Shavers didn't like it, spun him around like they were square dancing, and now it was Lyle with his back to the ropes. Shavers knew the drill. He came swinging. Lyle didn't bother running. He leaned into the ropes, rolled with the shots when he could, caught them on his arms when he couldn't. A few got through. You could see Lyle's mouth twist into something between a grin and a grimace. But he stayed upright, soaking up punishment like a man who knew this wasn't sport. This was survival. Lyle lured Shavers into the corner, sagging into the ropes for support. Shavers followed, happy to keep unloading artillery. He threw until he needed air. When he paused, Lyle fired back. Hard, mean punches meant to hurt, not to impress the judges. The crowd stood up, roaring like animals. Every time Lyle threw, the place shook. And Shavers, too tired or too stubborn to back off, stood right there and slugged back. Toe to toe, punch for punch, two junkyard dogs gnawing each other to the bone. Lyle leaned into the ropes again, just enough to stay standing, while Shavers burrowed in close, body to body, head to head. It was phone booth warfare, dirty, crowded, no room to breathe. And from that trench, Lyle started ripping uppercuts, the kind that loosened teeth and scrambled brains. Near the end of the round, chaos crept in. Lyle's fans had rushed into press row, shouting, flailing, trying to fight for him. One even reached under the ropes, grabbing at Lyle's leg like a drunk trying to pull his buddy out of a bar brawl. Lyle glanced down, confused for a split second, just long enough for the bell to save both men from themselves. This wasn't boxing, it wasn't art. It was a street fight with gloves, and things were just getting started. Round 4, and Lyle shoved Shavers to the ropes again with prison yard muscle, all elbows, shoulders, and desperation. Up close, he ripped uppercuts, mean little shovel hooks designed to break ribs and jaws. For a minute, it worked. Shavers felt it. You could see it in his shoulders, the way they slumped for half a second. But Shavers wasn't built to back up. He squared his feet, dug in, and started swinging like he was exercising demons with his gloves. Rights, lefts, no rhythm, no game plan, just raw violence sprayed across the canvas. Lyle's body jerked with every shot, sweat spraying off, bones rattling under the impact. But if Lyle was giving in, he never let on. He swallowed each punch, face twisting, knees dipping, but never hitting the floor. Shavers threw until his arms went rubbery and his lungs begged for mercy. And that's when Lyle came back. Slow, heavy shots, digging into Shavers' body like he was planting bombs in his ribs. The crowd lost its mind, howling for their local hero to drag himself out of hell one more time. The ref stepped in, peeled them apart like two dogs chewing on the same bone, and just as Lyle sucked in a desperate lungful of air, Shavers cracked him with a right hand that snapped his head back. Lyle blinked and then walked straight through it. He went right back to the body, trying to break Shavers' foundation before the whole damn house came down on top of him. Shavers, spent and sagging, tried to hold him off, but they were both running on fumes, two wrecked engines choking toward the finish line. Round 5, and they were exhausted. They leaned into each other, forehead to forehead. Shavers shoved Lyle into the ropes, threw a few mean ones, and Lyle spit them back out with his own. No finesse, no strategy. Now there were two guys fighting because they didn't know how to stop. Then Shavers stepped back, just for a few moments, bouncing in place like a man trying to remember what his legs were for. Lyle saw it, that flicker of exhaustion, the first crack in the wall, and stepped in with a jab, then another, then an overhand right that knocked Shavers sideways. But Lyle didn't chase him down. Maybe too tired, maybe too smart. He'd already learned Shavers was the kind of fighter who came alive when he was hurt. It flipped some ugly switch inside him. They traded at the bell, heavy punches from tired arms, both missing more than they landed, two blindfolded butchers swinging in the dark. Round 6. Shavers came out trying to dance. His legs weren't built for it, and Lyle could see it from across the ring. The jab, the right hand, the old one too that had worked in round 5, but never got its proper ending, now it came with interest. Lyle stepped in, dug a right into Shavers' ribs, then another to the jaw, and when Shavers' head snapped sideways, Lyle began raining down punches like he was hammering nails into a rotten wall. Shavers froze in place, caught between his own muscles and gravity. The fight drained out of his legs first, buckling at the knees, and the rest of them followed, falling slow, like a man tumbling down a flight of invisible stairs. He rolled over, tried to get up. His brain was screaming at his muscles, but the message got lost somewhere along the way, and the count hit 10. The crowd, 5,000 strong who bet their hearts on Lyle, stood and roared for 10 straight minutes. Not because it was pretty, because it was honest, because it was pain and violence and survival and everything they understood better than words. Lyle staggered around the ring, his legs rubber, his cornerman propping him up like a crumbling wall. Blood dripped from his nose. Sweat poured like rain. And beneath it all was the simple, brutal truth. He was the last man standing, a man who had fought his way out of hell, one punch at a time.